this is part 3 of my labor vlog. Obviously, this is not a vlog. I was not able to vlog anything, but everything has been written down by me or my husband, mostly my husband, because a lot happened. So this is like the last part, labor and birth story. So yeah, at 4:30 a.m. I was crying because the pain was so intense. They started me on Pitocin and on IV fluid. 7:30 a.m. my water broke, and then the contraction started to be so intense. I asked for the nitric oxide and it did nothing. I was getting so mad. I was like like trying to breathe, and it was getting so freaking mad. I didn't know what to do anymore. My friend doula left, so it was just me and my husband. So it was like he didn't know what to do to help me anymore. And in my hospital, the nurses and the midwife, everyone is amazing. They listened to my birth plan. They respected it. No one asked me if I want a pain medication, if I want an epidural. Like everyone knew my birth plan and they respected it. In the hospital that I gave birth, there's no anesthesiologist in the building. You have to physically call him. So it's even harder for you to get an epidural, especially when you want to get it medicated, which is good. Around 8 a.m. I was crying because the contraction was so painful. I didn't know what to do. There was only me and another woman in labor, and she called the anesthesiologist because she wanted the epidural. So because she called him and he knew I was in labor, he came into the room at 8 a.m. to introduce himself, and I was already so mad that the nitric oxide was not working. There was just me. I think there was a nurse, and my husband left to get water. And it was like I was getting mad. I didn't want to talk to him. I'm like, nope, that's not on my birth plan. I don't want to do this. And at that point, I was like, this is insane. I'm at 5 centimeters, and the pain is like this, and I have no idea when I'm gonna get to 10. So in my head, I'm like, if I knew that pain is gonna be for an hour or 2 hours, fine, I'm gonna do it. But I had no idea. You have no idea the first time mom how long you're gonna go from 5 to 10. And I hadn't slept for like days, right? I started the first induction on Sunday, and then it was already Thursday. So it's like second induction, like I was exhausted. And at that time, my husband came back from getting water, and I was so mad. And then he's like, the anesthesiologist, like, I'm gonna give you 5 minutes and then I'll come back. And then I was talking with my husband. My husband's like, I honestly don't know what to do anymore to help you out. Like, and even my husband's like, if the anesthesiologist wasn't here, you would have never called him. I'm like, no, I would have never, ever. But I feel like everything happened for a reason. And it took me 5 minutes. He came back and I'm like, let's just do the epidural. Like I was so exhausted at that point, and I had in my head, like I just said, I have no idea how long it's gonna take me to go from 5 to 10 centimeters, and I was already exhausted. And I'm like, the nitric oxide is not working. You know what? I just need to sleep. And so I got the epidural at 8:30. He put it at, I guess, the max, which is 10. And that's when I vlogged the part 2, and you can hear my voice and stuff. I'm completely out of it. I'm finally sleeping. And then I took a nap. The epidural started around like 8:45. At 12 p.m., my midwife checked me. I was already at 7 centimeters and 90% effaced. And then she put the internal monitor in, that the thing that she wanted to do before, to check why my contraction were not getting stronger. Obviously, another reason I didn't want to get epidural, because my blood pressure will get super low because I have chronic low blood pressure. And because of this, my blood pressure went super low many times, so they had to give me the medication. At 2 p.m., I started feeling nauseous, and I wanted to change position. So I asked to be like, she said like, oh, do you want to sit in a butterfly position, like actually sitting on the bed? And I said, sure. I sat, and I started feeling pressure with each contraction, or actually I could see the contraction on the screen. And then she's like, let me check you for a second. And thankfully, because of the epidural, I couldn't feel the pain of the cervical check. So that was one positive thing for sure. Check me was like, oh yeah, yes, you're ready. You're at 10 centimeters. So I went from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. I went from 5 to 10 centimeters. And I believe that it was because of the epidural that helped me relax and actually fell asleep, because I've been up and stressed out. And when I got the epidural, I specifically told him, like, I want to feel the pushing. I don't want to be out of it. I want to feel it. I don't want to have any problem or have more intervention. So I wanted the epidural to be lower as much as possible. And he said, like, I don't recommend cutting off the epidural completely, but I can lower it halfway. So he lowered it at 2:30 when my nurse checked me that I was ready to push. Then I started feeling the shakes. I was very cold. I was very weak. And then at 3 p.m., we started practice pushing, and I felt absolutely nothing. I was so frustrated, because that's the reason I didn't want to get the epidural. And the epidural finally started to wear off, and I was completely halfway off by 4:30 p.m. So it took 2 hours for my body to get rid of it. So from 3 to like 4:30 p.m., the pushes were completely useless, and I was getting so frustrated. The midwife came, and we started pushing in every position that I wanted to. Like, nobody forced me to push on my back or whatever, but nothing was working because I couldn't feel anything. Even though I technically pushed for 4 hours, there's only 2 hours there was an actual effective pushing. And because of the pushing, her head kept being stuck in my pelvis area. And so when we found out how big she was when she was born, then it made sense of why it was even harder for me to push her out. But all of this created like a hematoma on her back of her head. And so if I was not because I was not pushing effectively because of the epidural, the midwife called the OB to get him ready for a C-section, because she said if she is not coming out, we're gonna have to do emergency C-section, and which was one thing that I didn't want because of the epidural. And finally the epidural started wearing off. So around like 5 p.m. I started feeling my pushes, and then the midwife was so happy. She's like, okay, now we're finally making progress. And there's one thing though, that because of the pushes that was not effective and I was pushing so hard, my whole head was completely blocked and I couldn't see anything. I had a washcloth on my head because I was feeling so dizzy, and it's like the whole pressure, my whole blood was coming through my head, and I was, my head double, like triple in size. I was so swollen, and I could feel it as I was pushing. I was like, my head is swollen, like I'm really not feeling great. And the midwife's like, no, you look great. And I was like, no, I can feel something is off, to the point where my sinuses, I couldn't breathe for my nose anymore between the pushes. I mean, it was just so intense, the pushing. And I think it's the pushing were so strong, because I was so determined to get her out, that like all the blood and everything come to my head. And I've never heard of anyone having that thing, but it was absolutely insane. This is what I've been. Wow. And then she was finally born at 7 p.m. on the dot. I was so pushing at the end. I was really pushing and feeling everything. It was really going great. I was like, okay, next push, she's out. I didn't even wait. I just pushed her out and she slid right in. She came on my chest. She cried right away. She had no vernix. She was absolutely clean, which was surprising. But I was so happy that she was crying right away.
Birthday. That's good. She's gonna cry maybe a little bit extra.
And then everyone's like, oh, she's a big baby. And then they weighed her, and then she was 9 pounds, 2 ounces. My midwife said you had a 2nd-degree tear, but for how big she is and for a first-time mom, that is pretty normal. And this is when everything started going downhill for me. She was on my chest, and I started feeling very lightheaded. I can feel when I'm like about to pass out, and it's like, and she was on me, and I was like, I'm not feeling well. Like, someone help me, like hold her. And then my blood pressure dropped, and that's when I lost a lot of blood. My midwife had a hard time taking my placenta out. I even asked, like, I was not opening my eyes at all. My eyes were closed the entire time, like the light is right there, and my head was so much pressure. But I said, like, do I have to push my placenta now? She's like, no, you don't really have to push. I'm just gonna take it out. And she pulled it, and then some parts of the placenta stay stuck on the inside of my uterus. And so that's when the placenta complications started happening. My placenta was 1/4 dead, completely dead, completely gray, and the umbilical cord was not even in the middle, it was on the side. So just those two made me made me feel so much better that I decided to do the induction, and I didn't stay pregnant longer. But I also still don't know why. Wasn't my placenta always like this since the beginning, or did it start degrading like they say for IVF pregnancy? Also, my placenta was sticky and she couldn't get all the part out, so then she was trying to get inside, try to clean inside. And that's when I'm also glad that I had the epidural, because if I didn't get the epidural, even though it was not completely wore off, but like he cut it off at 2:30 p.m. so it was 7 p.m. so like it went down like considerably. It helped me with all the pain that she was doing and all of it inside, getting her entire head and forearm inside to clean it. And she even called the OB that was on call to come and help out, because she said, well, if I'm not able to get everything out, we're gonna have to get a DNC. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? It's like, we can probably do it right then and there because you had the epidural on that table. We don't have to bring you to the OR, but I'm gonna call the doctor that was on call, the OB. He came, he himself put his entire hand, and I could feel everything, like my entire uterus and belly was moving. They took everything out. He cleaned everything. Then they asked for an ultrasound tech to come and check if there was any part of my placenta left inside my uterus, and then everything was gone. And I'm like, thank God. But they said, yeah, my uterus was very sticky. It was, like I said, 1/4 dead. When I finally started to feel like myself again, it took a while. They put me 2 IV in my hands, and then I remember it's like, you get a lot of things happening down there, so I'm giving you a antibiotic shot. I'm like, sure. And once I could finally feel a little bit better, my husband said my blood pressure dropped to like 60 over 40 something, and my husband has not left my side. He was with me the whole time. The baby was fine. He was on the she was on the warmer. She was fine the entire time, but my husband didn't leave my side. Obviously it was more traumatic for him than for me because I didn't see everything. I heard everything that was happening, but I didn't see it. It was everything that happened, and it's like, okay, you lost a lot of blood, because I was feeling so weak and I keep asking question. It's like, you lost a lot of blood. She was like calculating. It's like, you lost 1600 and like 17, and then she keep calculating. It's like, okay, no, you basically lost 2 liters, which is hemorrhage. And so because of this is why we keep giving you medication, because you keep losing blood. But finally it stopped, and she's like, you're probably gonna need a blood transfusion, but I don't want to give it to you unless we're sure. So I had to wait like 6 hours before they did more blood work on me to see if I really need a blood transfusion. So at 2 in the morning they came into my room, but and I remember when she was stitching me, and I started like to feel a little bit better. Well, like I was completely out of it, but I could hear, and I started opening my eyes. I was like, she's like, this is why we do not give birth at home. I'm like, yes, I know emergency, and I'm so happy that I give birth in the hospital, and that's why I never want to give birth at home. After that, everything went to postpartum, and she was fine the entire time. We still haven't given her a bath, and she's 8 days, almost 9 days old tonight. But like I said, she had no burning. She was completely clean. She had some scab from we don't know what, from the labor, or something happened during the labor, or her head like hitting my bone inside. I don't know, but this was all swollen. So I did give her the vitamin K shot, because at first I just wanted to give the drops, but with everything that happened and her head was so big and the hematoma, I'm like, no, yes, just do the vitamin K shot. And then once I was at the hospital, and once I was in the room at 2 in the morning, they came to do blood work, and they said like, and then they came back at 3 and said like, yes, you do indeed need a blood transfusion. Already knew it. I was completely out of it. My face quadrupled in size. It was absolutely horrible. I felt like shit, completely crap. 3 in the morning, they gave me a blood transfusion that ran until 7 in the morning, and then I started to feel a little bit better, little by little, but I still was out of it. So I asked, when the doctor came to check on me and told me about my hemorrhage and all of this, they say she's perfect, but if you want to stay one more night at the hospital, you can. I'm like, yes, I do not feel good at all. Just going to the bathroom, I was so lightheaded. It took a while for me to finally feel good, like just standing up and going to the bathroom. So I stayed overnight. We stayed one more time. Because she was big, she got all her like they did like all the blood sugar test on her several times, and everything was fine. The 24-hour testing, everything was fine. Hearing, everything was fine. Like everything is perfect. But because of the whole hemorrhage and everything that happened, my milk didn't come in, and it still hasn't come in fully, because my body is working on getting my blood back and not producing milk, which kind of makes sense. So because of this whole last 7-8 days have been very frustrating. Induction Sunday night, and we left the hospital once, and they came back the next day, but we finally left the hospital with her Saturday at noon. And so glad that we didn't tell anyone about anything that was happening. We waited until we were home Saturday and finally texted everyone. So I've been out of it and feeling a little bit better day by day, even though some people will say like my birth story was traumatic and should be traumatic, and my midwife said like I want to see you both in 2 weeks, because she looked at him and she's like, it's gonna be way more traumatic for you because you watched everything than for her. Like in my head, I do not see it as traumatic birth because I did not see it, and I kind of like 90% did everything or got everything that I wanted to do, like try to get unmedicated, and I just wish I maybe tried a longer to go with the nitric oxide. But now at least I know how my body reacts to the epidural, and I know for next time. But yes, I do not see that a traumatic birth because I got everything that I wanted, and no one could have planned out my hemorrhage. It's just more traumatic birth for my husband, unfortunately. Also, her heart rate has not dropped once in 4 days that I was at the hospital in labor. Not once has it dropped. Like, she was a true warrior. If her heart rate dropped many times, the labor would have probably been more traumatic to me. And when we left on Saturday, my husband said, like, after everything that just happened, are you ready to do it again? I'm like, oh, yes, of course. It was all worth it. And it's like, even though you almost lost your life, I'm like, yeah, because I have her now. Like, it was all worth it because now I have her. Like, I do not see it that I almost lost my life. Like, for me, I just wanted her to be healthy and alive, and me to be healthy and alive. And we made it. I did it. Even though my husband see it a little differently, I will do it all over again.